Alrighty, Oh, there's a bit of harmony there.
Thank you.
See, I'm doing hellos, but you're doing hell highs over here.
Oh, am I right? Oh, Jesus.
Cause we're recording for the fifth period pod. Now Balloon's on the full-time squad. You know that we're recording for the fifth period pod. And we no longer hide that we're on. Living in a fifth period world. Living in a fifth period world. Living in a fifth period world. Living in a fifth period world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fifth Period, the film podcast hosted by two media teachers, where today the subject matter might be small, but our energy levels are huge. My name is Mr. Brown, and with me as always is...
Mr. Boylan.
I never know what you're going to come out with.
Neither do I.
I liked that one was a bit breathy.
Breathy. What film are we talking about today?
Oh, I'm not going to be able to keep that up.
Neither will I. I've already lost it.
We're going to be talking about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh, no.
That's all right. They come back.
Oh, spoilies.
Spoilies, yeah. What was the word we were talking about earlier where you were like, I don't think... Oh, reggie.
Yeah, instead of regular. Yeah, that's a common way to shorten regular.
I think it is.
Yeah?
Comment below if you use the term reggie.
Anyway.
In addition to our main discussion of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids today, we will also be doing a weekly watches and tantalizing trailers. So if you do want to skip ahead to any of that, I will leave time codes in the description below.
Hi, I'm Josh, and we'll be chatting about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Big thank you to Josh for his intro today. He's actually in my Year 11 media class and
nice.
is one of few from that group that haven't done an intro yet. I like to collect them all. I'm a bit of a completist in that way. Got to get the whole set. But no, it's really nice to see students that you regularly teach outside of the classroom. Like film club is great for that because obviously anytime you are in the classroom, you can have a bit of a chat, but you do have to be pretty focused on the work itself. So it's cool to have students that you are regularly seeing, but just in this different environment,
100%.
Chatting films and just catching up. So yeah, it was really, really nice to have Josh there. You're getting quite a few of your students coming in at the moment, which is good.
Yeah, a lot of my juniors are starting to come through, year 7 and 8 particularly. Still trying to get some of the year 9s along, but, you know, it's some of the year 9s think they're a little bit
too cool.
Too cool for film club.
Too cool for film club.
We might have a few new ones, Mr. Brown, because actually just today, a few year 7s revealed they've been checking out the pod.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and they were asking, are you guys the only ones who do it? And then I was explaining the whole lineage of the fifth period before I became involved. And
I love that. Are you the only ones who do it, or are there better people that we could listen to?
Either that, or they were trying to ask, can we get on the podcast?
Oh, is that right?
I think that's
Ethan's
what the angle
been trying
was.
that one for quite some time. They can come on and do an intro.
I was going to say, Alessio, if you are listening to the podcast, then this is your opportunity. Come along to Film Club, and that's your appearance. And maybe you might be able to work yourself into on pod.
And it doesn't have to just be a brief intro. He can do a little spiel.
Yeah,
Alessio, more like Amorio, am I right? Anyway, so big thank you to Josh for his intro today. And also, if you've got special introductions and longer little spiels that you want to do, we're super keen to get you on in future. So
yes.
Thanks, Josh. Let's jump into Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. A Joe Johnston film. Or Johnston.
Johnston, don't forget the T.
No, what? Well, I did, but I think I
Don't do it again.
I don't think anyone noticed.
Okay.
I was looking into some of his credits. Like, we spoke about Jurassic Park 3, even though we only did Jurassic Park JP3. But also, Captain America the First Avenger was a big one I hadn't realized.
Yep.
Jumanji. Mm-hmm. And he directed the live action section of The Page Master.
Yeah, that's a nice little deep cut. I really love that film.
Oh, me too.
To death. That might be a good little film club
I think it really would.
I
could let it slide as not an animated feature.
Yeah, because it's not all of it.
It's not all of it. I would have like a collection of 5 or so films that anytime I was sick, my dad would go to the video store and like get those films. Things like Toy Story, The Page Master.
That's
Man,
awesome.
I loved it.
That was like one of my probably most rewatched movies as a kid. Big Macaulay Culkin fan, and he's the main cat in that. And then you've got Christopher Lloyd, and I'm going to stop talking about The Page Master and save something for when we actually do this on the podcast.
Yeah, wow.
Because I think it's happening.
It is. It's good. It was also my first exposure to the Jekyll and Hyde story.
Same.
Yeah, very cool.
Also did The Rocketeer as well, which is one of my favourite sort of Disney live action situations. I think it's a cracking little sort of like superhero movie. Basically, he was able to do that based off the success of this film.
Very nice. When the students select these films, I kind of look at, who directed it, who's the main cast, and for most of it, I know these details already because we do ones that are pretty familiar with me, but this was one that I had not seen since I was a wee lad.
Same.
I remembered having quite a fondness for it back then, but hadn't seen it in a long time, so I wanted to look up some details. And I must say, one of the things I liked about it, tight 90. I love it.
We
I
like
love
that.
a short watch for Film Club. Honey, I Shrunk the Runtime, am I right?
Oh, good. One of the important assets to this crew were the people who wrote this film, and that's Stuart Gordon and Brian Usner, who would work together on a few different things, but actually one of the films I'll be talking about in my weekly watches, which is Re-Animator.
Oh, nice.
So there you go.
Wow, that's a bit of a tonal shift.
Just slightly. They're pretty funny, and you've got some eccentric scientists involved.
That's true.
That's probably the only through line.
Yeah, well, fair enough. But you see all of these credits display at the start of the film in a very, very fun animated credit sequence.
It's combo of CGI and like hand-drawn animation.
Yeah, the music is real jaunty. I will say the only thing about this section that I think lets it down is the fact that all of the things that they're doing in this animated section, I'm like, I can't wait to see this in the movie.
Or you're still going to be waiting.
Yeah, I am, because all of it's like, they're running on a record player like it's a treadmill, and then it's like, well, they're outside for the whole film.
Yep. That was one part, actually. I mean, I'll talk about that a little bit. I probably forgot like how contained this was to the one location. Although it is a massive location for them. It was quite interesting.
Is it, though? We'll get into that.
But, yeah, really good. I really like the opening titles. I think the score is really good, done by James Horner, who had done a lot of terrific scores. Braveheart, Titanic, Aliens, An American Tale, Land Before Time.
He's much more accomplished than his brother Jack Horner, who just sat in a corner.
Good deep cut there.
Oh, dear. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
Well, we shift out of the animated world and into the real one, and we are in the household of the Selinskis.
Yeah, so we meet Rick Moranis as Wayne, the wacky inventor dad who doesn't really invent anything worth
that works.
Anything. It's such a trope of inventors too. Like, they've got really obscure inventions that no one cares about, like a finger that helps you dial the telephone.
Like old mate from Gremlins.
Yeah. Or, Christopher Lloyd before he invents
time machine.
the one thing that he can invent. So, yeah, it's all a little bit useless. But we've got his wife, Diane, the title character of the film, if you will. She is the honey in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Plays the line.
But she's currently off at work. We also meet their daughter, Amy, who is just real excited to go meet a boy at the mall. She gets all tangled up in the phone cord. Symbolism. Tangled up in love, I think. And of course, we meet their son, Nick, who is like a mini Rick Moranis, both in appearance and his inventing ambitions.
Yes, bigger, thick-framed glasses. Ooh, yeah. And trying to show his dad a few of the things he's working on, and Wayne does not really care.
No. I like that parallel between the two families. In the film, the one thing that we achieve by the end of it, well, two things. They do invent a shrink ray.
They do.
But the other thing is that both the dads, who are somewhat absentee fathers,
depending on the kid.
Yeah, exactly right. Have far more fondness for family time and really value the members of their family and start to listen and understand what they're going through.
Correct. It's nice resolution, nice bow on the end of the story.
And they do set that up really well from the start because they keep paralleling between the two neighboring houses. So after the Selinskis How much does it bother you that I'm pronouncing it that way?
A little bit.
A lot? Maybe I'll just say, after that family.
After the Waynes.
Yeah, exactly. After Wayne and the rest of his family are introduced, including Cork, by the way, who's spelt like quark. Quark!
Who's a character from like Ratchet and Clank, so there you go.
But he's the unsung hero of this movie.
Saves it. Saves the day.
Or do they sing it? Maybe they sing his praise. He's my favourite part anyway.
Okay, that's fair. You're allowed to have it.
Dogs are cute.
Dogs are great.
And it's another good parallel because even in the other family, all the family members kind of like align with someone and then Cork aligns with their cat.
There's always like these mirror images.
That's it. So next door, we got the Thompsons.
Oh, now when I say hello, Mr. Thompson, and press down on your foot, you smile and nod.
No problem.
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
I think he's talking to you.
So we got Big Russ, the dad, who is a bit of a D-bag.
Pretty funny.
Yeah, well, he learns to love his family over the course of the film, but he's like that classic disgruntled neighbor that you see in most 80s films.
With lots of different voices as well. Like his voice goes all over the shop.
Maddie pointed out to me, he sounds a little bit like Jim Carrey. And then I was like, oh my gosh, he does. I have to put some voice clips in so that you can hear it.
I put on 20 pounds of pure, unadulterated, blitz the quarterback and rip his head off muscle wrestle.
That was one that the eagle-eyed or eagle-eared Mr. Whitsitt, who made his first appearance at Film Club.
He said he sounded like Jim Carrey.
Not the Jim Carrey part, but like, what was he doing with the voices? It's going all over the place. And I hadn't noticed it. And I was like, good pick up from Darcy there. But the Jim Carrey observation, that's awesome because the man with the 25 million voices, it's very much reflected at this stage by Matt Frewer, who plays Big Russ Thompson.
We also meet May, who is played by Christine Sutherland. Oh, Buffy the Vampire
Joyce
Slayer's
Summers.
mum. Love a bit of Joyce. We also meet their son, Little Russ, who has no aspirations whatsoever.
Just happy. He basically is just doing all the activities that his dad's pretty keen on.
Yeah, well, but he's been dropped from the football team, or so he claims, but he actually quit the football team. He's not keen to go on their big fishing trip.
Oh, that's sorry, I'm getting them confused between... Yeah, Little Russ he doesn't really want to do anything.
No. Oh, I see why you get confused, though, because we've got Russell, and Ronald.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Triple
no
R,
imagination in
just
that
like
family.
the movie. That's fine.
Really contrasts the imagination of the wacky scientist next door.
We got
all his kids have
Wayne,
different names.
Amy and Nick. Oh.
Anyway, their other son, as you mentioned, the outdoorsy bully type character, he's a bit of a quirky one because old Ron, he's a bully to Nick, but I don't really get why he feels he's in a superior position to Nick. He's just as much of an outcast. He's sleeping in a tent out the back. He's set up all these traps, so he's somewhat of an inventor himself.
Exactly.
And
he makes you a bit jealous.
Maybe. But they both can bond over the fact that they aspire to be just like their dads as well. I just think he's a doofy looking kid, but he acts so much better than Nick. Like, Nick's a real weirdo.
Yeah, and I'm like, he'd be kind of in hanging out in the same circles, guys. Bond over that.
Yeah.
But I do like when Russ is talking to Little Russ. Geez, that's going to be tricky.
No, Big Russ, Little Russ.
Big Russ, Little
box.
Russ, cardboard. That's good. When he's talking to Little Russ about hitting the weights, he asks like Little Russ is like, "What are you into?" And he's like, "I don't know." And that's like awfully introspective for like a kid who's maybe I think like 16 or something like that in this film we're supposed to be. Good on you for like understanding like, you know what, I kind of still finding my place and I'm going to get there and that's fine.
True. I can totally understand though how as a parent, even if your kids didn't know what they were interested in, you'd want them to try a bunch of different things. Like not just force them into what you want to do, but
have a go.
Yeah, have a go at lots of different things so that maybe you can find something that you do like. So I can totally understand that his dad's like, well, what do you want to do? I don't want to do anything. He's like, well, keep doing this until you figure out something else that you want to do. He comes across as quite mean about it. But
a little bit.
The idea in theory kind of makes sense.
That's fair.
Back at Wayne Manor, Wayne has invented a shrink ray to present at a big conference, but it doesn't work. It just blows stuff up. It makes applesauce. Very bland applesauce, but applesauce.
I was going to say, not even like seasoned, no cinnamon or nutmeg or anything like that. So, not how I do my applesauce anyway.
No, yuckers. But I like how quickly they establish his incompetence. So the uselessness of his inventions we already mentioned, but also him trying to type a message to his daughter while he's still wearing the big gloves and pressing all the keys. I feel like that was way ahead of its time. That's just predictive text right there, isn't it?
I know, it's going pretty well. And the other thing, like looking at sort of what Wayne struggles with and, you know, he's keeping things together, he also looks like he's struggling to keep together basically his relationship with his wife, particularly in sort of like the early conversations. Is she staying away from home deliberately?
So she's at work, is my understanding.
Yeah, she's selling houses. And,
she's a real estate agent, but this is something I've got notes about, like, as they come up, but there are subtle references to it at different points in the film, and I'll kind of mention it as we go, but this is something that they could have put way more into this film.
100%.
Like, as I said, it's a tight 90, but they're clearly padding it out with useless things along the way, like when the Thompsons, the family that they're going camping with, comes and stops in at the house. What the hell's the point of that scene?
So they can have a cool handshake.
Oh, ridiculous.
That's
ridiculous.
But yeah, like sort of fleshing out, because it looks like their relationship's on the rocks.
On the rocks. And
I'm like,
even at the end of the film, the daughter is like, are you and Dad okay? And
yeah.
I was kind of like, oh, did they kind of go into enough detail about this?
Yeah, like are they sort of in the middle of getting a divorce, or like what the go is? What I thought at the start of the film was that she had moved out of home potentially.
Yeah, right.
Or that she was away from home and she like decided to take more time like away, and then she was coming back while like Wayne was sort of getting his stuff sorted. It was really sort of difficult to come across. Even like the way that she spoke to him like on the phone and stuff, and the way he kind of answered the phone. I'm like, it seems like they're still together, but they're not together.
There's a mix of it. Sometimes it's like, oh, my husband, and other times she seems genuinely pissed. We'll get to it. We'll get to it in context.
Just quickly on Ricky Moranis. Do you know there was a couple of other people who were turned down the role?
Is that right?
Yeah. Chevy Chase and John Candy.
I mean, what is this thing with John Candy being cast in films and then it ending up going to Rick Moranis?
Yeah, that's what happened in Ghostbusters.
Exactly, yeah.
He did the same thing. He suggested Rick Moranis for this.
Oh, see, he didn't suggest Rick Moranis for Ghostbusters.
That's what I read.
I thought that's just who they wanted to go with after John Candy wanted to make the character really weird and have a crazy German accent.
I clearly haven't gone too much into the lore of Ghostbusters.
We did it on the pod, so we looked
fair.
into it a little
You got a bit
more.
of triv.
Bit of triv. But yeah, before he takes off to the conference, he tells the kids to clean their house and make it all spick and span before their mum gets home. So
you know what that means?
Well, it means an 80s montage. Love a good 80s cleaning montage, but you're right. Something like this is a suggestion of, okay, we need to make the house nice because your mum's the one that's the breadwinner in the family.
I'm like trying to preserve things and like I want her to come home happy and all this sort of stuff.
Even though he doesn't help him do it.
Yeah.
He just tells them to do it. Like father, like son, because his son passes the buck again to his friend.
He's just handballing everything.
Yeah, exactly. He gets his friend, old Tommy Purvis.
It took a while.
Best name in the world.
Tommy Purvis.
Old Tommy Purvis.
He sounds like a character in like an 80s slasher film.
Wow,
like
almost.
Tommy Jarvis.
With him behind the wheel of this this lawnmower, it almost became an 80s slasher film.
Yeah.
But no, he gets Tommy to come in and mow the lawn. He cons him into it because he's like, no, it's a remote control lawnmower. You're going to love it. Tommy's pretty keen, but he doesn't have the time right now. So he's like, I'll come back later. And he's like, all right. He and his dad are both like getting other people to do the work for him. Yeah, the whole point is that he's going off to a big conference to pitch the shrink machine, even though the shrink machine doesn't work.
Which leads to him
going on goodwill.
Yeah, and he compares himself to Einstein when he discovers the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And he's like, probably could have gone with a different comparison, Wayne. But hey,
probably
shoot for the stars. That's okay. And then old Fredrickson kept poking holes in all the theories and said the only thing that you've shrunk is the size of this audience.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy that kind of back and forth, rich white laugh kind of thing.
The chortling.
Are you saying size is no longer relative? Like, oh, you showed him. Now, gentlemen and one token lady, let's go to an early lunch.
It's true.
He's at the conference. As you said, the kids are having their 80s style cleaning montage. And I do this.
Nick Cayman's Turn It Up.
It is catchy as hell. I have exclusively done all of my cleaning to this track on repeat since.
Just every day, every week, just
dancing around,
chuck on a bit of Nick Cayman.
That's it. I do genuinely chuck on music and have a bit of a groove while I clean.
100%.
Tell you what I don't do though. I don't flip the mop upside down and put the head of the mop right next to my face.
It's germy. That's gross.
That's disgusting.
Why would you do that, Amy?
And also, then what are you cleaning the floor with? Just a wooden stick bit at the bottom?
It's not very efficient.
It doesn't make any sense.
No wonder Amy doesn't get a call back from the Bush for to take the dance. Probably he's seen her clean stuff and like, oh, I'm not gonna kiss her. She's like put a mop near her face.
I know,
gross.
but someone who's not as hung up on germs, old little Russ.
Old little Russ is infatuated and
he loves it.
transfixed.
Oh, well, I mean, they do suck face later after she's had mud all over her. So
he's got no problem.
He's
with
got no
germs.
qualms. He's like, yeah, you sing into that disgusting mop.
Keep doing it.
I mean, he's just eyeing her from the window. He's pulling a bit of a Tommy Purvis himself, isn't he?
Wee, nice. But not nice what he's doing.
No, no. I mean, his dad's also looking through the window like, what a weird family. That's a reoccurring thing. Everyone in this movie thinks someone else is weird. I'm not weird, but what they're doing, now that's weird.
Correct.
The Thompsons are next door getting ready for their big fishing trip. They got all their frozen dinners.
All ready to go. And then while Lil Russ is trying to become Big Russ in the gym.
Nice. That's good.
Ron is playing baseball by himself.
What a loser.
And then cracks the ball into the attic window. It clangs around and goes into the shrink ray machine, and it's the necessary buffer zone between the laser and the rest of the machine to make sure that basically what was happening before doesn't happen. So now we've got a perfectly working shrink ray.
We certainly do, but it's switched on.
It's going all over the place. It's zapping
goodness.
away furniture.
Chairs, couches.
Oh my.
Children.
Soon, yes.
Soon, yeah. Little Russ makes Ron take responsibility for his actions and marches him next door.
Drags him.
To apologise, and then he and Nick go upstairs.
And then what happens?
They get shrunk. They get shrunk off screen. And I like that it happens off screen for the first one because it pushes the reveal of what it looks like back a little bit.
And they could have been dead.
Well, yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Bang, you're dead.
But it also limits how many dated effects we have to see. That's one less.
Good thing there's only two of them.
Yeah, well, Lil Russ is trying to have a bit of banter with Amy.
And it's going
he's
terribly.
Like, so, you like to dance? And she's like, how do you know that?
He's like, oh.
But she's not keen anyway because she's hung up on the boys she's meeting at the mall.
Exactly.
But they go check on their brothers and they get shrunk too. And I will also say this one doesn't look so bad either.
No, it looks all right.
Yeah, so it happens very quickly, this one. And I think that's the key. The problem with the later ones is instead of shrinking, they're smaller and then they get blown up, meaning bigger, not...
Like the apple.
Yeah, not like the apple. But then they're just sort of like sitting there on a green screen background and they hold it for...
Too long.
Too long.
Too long.
Way too long.
Do it quickly so we don't have to think about it
Exactly.
too much.
So this one's nice and quick, and I reckon at the beginning, the effects all look really, really good. So
I think so too.
Bit of a balance of a couple of different things. So we've got big sets that they're in. We've got obviously a little bit of green screen, lots of rear projection as well, which I think, even though you can tell it's rear projection, I find that way less distracting than green screen.
How come?
I don't know. It's like it doesn't have the green glow around them.
Like the silhouette sort of situation.
Yeah, and also their colouring, we talked about it a little bit with Back to the Future too. Their colouring goes a little pale with the green screen because of the way that they key it. Something about the rear projection, it sells the effect a little more for me because they do layers. So they have sets in front of the rear projection and it just makes the worlds feel a little more connected.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So all the kids are a little now. One of the things that really sells it is because they've got practical stuff on set as well. The kids actually feel like they're interacting with the world, and you would have a blast on this set.
100%. It looks so much fun, like the
giant nails they're jumping over,
the broom that they're trying to clutch onto and everything. I think, like, given the fact that this film came out 89, I think for the time, like, obviously, we poke fun at the fact that there's some dated things, and we'll get to a couple of those. But the fact that the practice sets look really, really good, feels like a playground for these young actors to sort of play around in,
and even like slides and things like that.
Yeah, I know.
It's very cool. When they introduce Auntie later on, that's when we also start to see a bit of stop motion and puppetry incorporated in as well.
Which is good fun. I
I
like a bit of
agree.
stop motion.
The other thing that's really good about trying to convey things from their perspective, the lenses that they use on the camera. So they use very specific types of lenses and always made sure that they filmed things from really low angles to make it seem like there was this warped perspective and you were seeing the world from their eyes.
Yeah. One thing we talk about a lot with the students is the power of using a low angle to make a character feel small, insignificant, weaker, and all these sort of things. And it does that really well because it makes everything else, look pretty massive. And given the fact that, obviously there's limitations with the effects and stuff that they do have, the fact that they're able to make this feel like a pretty natural sort of fear for these smaller characters after they've been shrunk is how big everything is. And the way they do that just with simple camera angles, I think is really effective.
100%. So Wayne comes home. He's a little deflated because they didn't just believe the machine could work in theory.
Without proof, yeah.
Yeah, which is completely fair enough.
It's like if you're a scientist and you're disconcerted and upset about people not agreeing with you because you don't have physical proof, I feel like you're in the wrong industry.
Yeah.
Change your job, Wayne.
Well, that's the thing. If he's merely trying to theoretically say that it could happen, well, he's not selling anything to them in that.
That's not a machine, that's a theory.
Exactly.
But he cracks it and he
smashes up the machine.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So angry, and the kids are like, no, that's our way back.
But he can't hear them.
No.
And I'm not sure if this really tracks in terms of he wouldn't be able to hear them because they're smaller, but I like that they just write it into the script to establish that's what's going on.
Deal with it.
I'm pretty sure Amy literally says, don't you get it? We're too small. He can't hear us. And that happens a handful of times throughout the film. They just say a line, so it's like, this is what we've established the rules are.
Justified. These are the rules of the honey universe.
But she says it in a judgmental tone so that you feel like if you question it, you're the idiot.
Yeah, damn.
Don't you get it? It's because they were small.
Sorry, Amy, I didn't get it. Jeez, I'm trying to watch the movie.
But it was about this point in Film Club where I was talking to you and I said, do you reckon they're going to change their size relative to different objects based on the convenience of the film and what it needs to be?
The answer to that was...
Yes, they absolutely do. Sometimes they are the size of objects that you'd be like, okay, he would clearly be able to see them if they're that size. And other times they're microscopic so that in a wider shot, we can't even see them when he's sweeping up the broom.
How convenient.
Yeah, well, not for them, because as a result of that...
They got to escape the deadly broom.
That's it, and they can't. He dustpans them up, puts them in the old garbo bag, and then
that's the
chucks
end of
them out
the
on the
movie.
street. Part of me was hoping.
Hey, whoa.
Whoa.
Copping a shrug for Mr. Brown's enjoyment of this film, am I right?
You betcha. So they managed to pierce the bag.
They have. And they're in the wild jungle of the Zelensky backyard.
That's a good shot. When they pull apart the old garbo bag, and it's like the Amazon jungle out there.
It is. Well, because they make point of the fact that grass is a bit long out there. It's looking like a jungle out there.
Yeah.
Doesn't it looks like the Amazon out there or something like that?
He says that to him, and then great line from Rick Moranis. He goes, yeah, producing oxygen, Russ. We all have to do our part. You know how all the jungles are receding everywhere? So good. I was worried when we started watching this movie. I was like, I don't think we're going to get as much of an opportunity to see Rick Moranis shine in this as, say, something like Ghostbusters. And I stand by that. It's not nearly as good as Ghostbusters in terms of his performance, but he gets some good lines.
Yep.
He gets great physical comedy. He still is just doing his thing, and I love that.
Ricky thing.
His Ricky thing. That's what they call it.
The Ricky thing.
They decide their best chance is to journey back to the house and try and get old Ricky to turn him back to normal. And
it's a pretty good plan.
It is a good plan, but this is one of my biggest gripes with the film.
Oh, no.
Nick does a calculation and says that it is 3.2 miles back to the house. So he has calculated their size now and the distance of the backyard, and he says it's exactly 3.2 miles back. Now, that's only, for us Australians, that's only just over 5 kilometres, which even if you are walking at a very slow 10-minute walking pace per K, it's 50 minutes. 50-minute stroll. That's all it is.
Crazy.
Very cruisy.
Why is the film
Why
going
the
so
hell
slow?
are they out there for 2 days? It doesn't make any sense. And they keep drawing attention to it at different points too. Amy goes, oh no, there's only 6 hours till the mall closes. That's a long time.
You got enough time.
You've
It's all
got
good.
plenty of time.
You'll make your day. It's
I
all right.
certainly wouldn't be camping out there overnight.
They do that though.
Yeah. And then the next morning, it's like they go 100 meters and they're like, oh, there we go.
We're here.
Yeah.
The movie's finishing up, so we need to be closer.
Yeah. Oh, but that
no.
really ground my
I can
gears.
tell. Jeez. Louise.
Grrr.
Oh, that's the sound of the gears.
That's it. I'm going to go all Harrison Ford Red Hulk.
Whoa, jeez. That's scary. One of my favorite lines they get in the film, they're trying to also let's just set up some more logic as well. It's like, does time pass differently because we're smaller and everything? And then little Russ is like, all my teachers would be retired if that was the case. And it's like, why would you want your teachers to be finished up? Don't you enjoy being in school with your teachers? I mean, come on, Mr. Brown, what's this?
Go teachers.
Go teachers. That's what we say every day. We put our hands in the middle.
Yeah.
All 200 staff members. So many rows deep, and we're all going, 1, 2, 3, go teachers.
That's us. That is us. So there are some fun moments in the backyard.
Like that.
But there are also some that just fall pretty flat, especially early on because they're trying to just throw things in there, like big butterfly, T-Rex toy. This isn't adding anything for me.
They're like these little jump scares that aren't jump scares.
Exactly right.
And they're like, oh, cool, the butterfly's going to come back. Nope.
No. Making fun of little Russ for not being able to whistle.
Yeah.
Who cares?
He's just copping it from all sides.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Don't you know how to whistle?
Come on, man. Just put your lips together and blow. And he's like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, mate. He just can't do anything.
Yeah, we get to see how the characters are interacting a little bit more. We find out how annoying Ron truly is.
Oh, just grating.
He really is. But I do appreciate when she lords over him that they're going to be rich, and then he decides to start being nice again.
Oh, I always loved your family, and I've never said a bad thing, and your dad's awesome and not crazy and not from another planet.
In his defense, a lot of them are annoying for different reasons.
A lot of these characters suck.
Yeah, like Amy putting the mud on his hand later on, and then singing a little song as she does it.
Yeah, because that was the same tune that he was humming earlier, and I'm like, oh, okay, you showed him.
Nick's allergic to pollen, but then he's like, I'm too little to breathe it in, but then
Achoo!
sneezes immediately afterwards. It's, what a ridiculous. But Diane comes home and they start wondering where the kids are.
Yeah, which is probably a fair question.
Yeah. Yeah,
Where are our
hasn't
children?
cared this
I
entire
was like,
time.
I don't know. They must be out at this place or this place. Oh, they're at the mall. It's all good.
But then we get the big old bee attack,
Yes.
which looks pretty funny.
Pretty.
At first especially. Very, very janky.
It looks like a theme park ride.
Yeah, it does have that vibe to it. I actually don't mind it once it actually flies through the air and we're seeing the point of view of the bee going around the yard. That looks pretty cool.
But the shot from behind the bee, looking at the kids and stuff, that doesn't look great.
No, and when he's still in the flower and the bee's bouncing up and down on him, that's hilarious. But yeah, it looks pretty good when it starts flying through the yard, and old Ricky Boy picks up the baseball bat and is swinging at it, and that looks quite cool. But then he gets some hardcore judgment from Diane. There was a bee on me, and she's like, "Yeah, right." What does she think was happening?
Why would you lie about that?
Yeah, but this was the first time where I was like, "Oh man, she hates him."
Yeah, there's clearly some
animosity there.
some frostiness.
Yeah.
But Wayne correctly works out. It's like, hang on a second, my son doesn't play baseball. What's this doing here?
That's another part where it's the dialogue is just spelling it right out. Wait a minute. Nick doesn't play baseball.
That means another character owns this object, which might tell me some information about where the characters have gone. Scene.
But that all happens after Diane has decided she's going to go to the mall to look for the kids, so that he can have a little fun journey on his own.
Yeah, Wayne gets in his apparatus and he eventually works it out that the couches have been shrunk and they've been shrunk.
and he must have picked them up with the broom, goes to the back where the garbage cans are.
Looks in the magnifying glass, sees the sliced open garbage bag, and
realizes they got to be in the thicket.
Yep, so what has he got to do? He's got to put himself in a sling that's attached to a TV as a counterweight, and
so good. So it
just quickly changes it together.
There is a progression. So at first he's worried about stepping on them, so he goes on the fence. Goes on the fence. Then he gets the crutches. You can still step on them if you're in crutches.
I was going to say, but like, it's bang, you're dead. Bang, you're dead.
Smaller surface area, but more chance of killing them that way.
Yeah.
And it eventually then builds to the harness pulley system that he's got. But all of that progression is so good.
Yeah, I love it. Just Ricky, just ricking it up.
Just rigging it up.
He does. The bees crash landed with Nick and Russ, and so now we've got two separate little adventures, at least for a little bit.
Very brief.
Yes. I was like, oh, cool, this would be fun to see them separate. Oh, they're back together again. That's fun.
Well, yeah, and the odds of them getting back together again
across this massive yard.
It's ridiculous. But something that kind of spurs them on to do that a little quicker is that old Wayne accidentally turns on the sprinklers.
And then the water mortars are basically exploding all around them, which
I
looks
think
cool.
it's so cool. It's one of the best looking sequences.
100%.
Really, really well done from their perspective. It's terrifying. But he's so casual about it. This happens a few times where he's done something that puts him in danger, and it takes him too long to work out. Oh no, that'd be bad.
I might kill like my now shrunken children and neighbors' children.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoops.
Honey, I drowned the kids.
That's the threequel.
That's it. So it ends up kind of causing them, almost like herding them in together again.
Oh, convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. Yeah, so once they've reunited, Amy falls into a big old mud puddle.
So who's gonna save her?
Oh, well, obviously, it's going to be little Russ.
He's got her. He dives in with no regard for human life, except
His
Amy's.
own. Yeah, he's got a regard for hers, for sure.
Goes in and saves her, and the classic mouth-to-mouth resuscitation saves her life. Nick asks, oh, where'd you learn that? And he says, French class. And if you're wondering what about that joke, don't worry, they're going to come back to it.
What does that even mean?
Like French kissing
it's obviously French kissing.
Sorry, guys.
No one's actually French kissing in French class.
It's like, what French class is he going? What's going on at this school, Mr. Brown?
I bet whoever wrote that line of dialogue retired immediately afterwards. Like, I'm never going to write something better than that.
If he was saying this and he was asking his teachers to retire, it's clearly not the French writer because it seems like he's enjoying that class. It's his favourite class.
Yeah, wow.
Jeez Louise. Anyway.
Old Nick's not enjoying the joke, though. He's trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, it's just...
French class.
He keeps coming back to it.
The numbers come up, E equals MC squared in front of his face. French class, what does he mean? But yeah, while they're joking around and having a little artificial respiration.
Who could it be? Who's arrived?
The Forresters have arrived at the Thompsons, and they're starting to get a little concerned about their missing kids too, to the point where they tell the Forsters, not the Forresters.
Sorry.
So this is why I can't trust your pronunciation.
The Forsters.
Says Zelensky.
The Forsters.
The Forsters. Not the Threesters, but the Forsters. They tell them that they can't go camping. Not because their children are missing, but he decides to say that it's because May has food poisoning and is exploding from both ends like a busted fire hydrant.
And then he's still like, you paid a deposit on this. Like, it's the fishing trip, man.
It was like $80 or something.
A whole $80.
A whole $80.
And then how they introduce each other with like the fish handshake. But then as he's leaving, it's like the sad little version of it. It's like, oh no.
Their RVs say honey on them. Did you realize?
No. Good pickup.
But why?
It's the name of the movie.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, my favorite transition though, because it keeps bouncing from the Thompsons to the parents to the kids and
the Forsters.
Thankfully, we don't have
for a couple of minutes
back to them again.
Jeez.
But my favorite part of all of that is the transitions going from one to the other. And there's this great shot where the kids are walking through the grass, and then it just tilts up. and we get Rick Moranis' giant head just like hovering over the top.
It looks, what it reminds me of that shot is like the opening of Star Wars with the damn Star Destroyer going over them.
I was thinking 2001: A Space Odyssey, just like. Dum, 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 dum.
So good. So good.
But yeah, they meet Auntie. Apparently Nick is also allergic to, but it doesn't factor into the plot at all.
He's allergic to ants.
Why do they keep mentioning these things that have nothing to do with the plot?
They're like, oh, our characters haven't talked in 7 seconds. Better get them to say something else useless. God damn it, Joe Johnston.
Auntie looks a bit dodgy sometimes, and then other times looks great.
With the old stoppy motion?
Yeah, I'm quite a fan of stop motion stuff and
Me too.
real puppetry stuff. But obviously when you're doing that, there has to be aspects where it's like the kids are then green screened on top of him while they ride him. But they don't really ride him for very long. Like everyone tries to jump on him at first, and that's pretty funny when he's just like bashing them away.
Ron goes absolutely flying.
It's so funny.
He's barely on it for like a millisecond. It goes bang.
Yeah, he's like a martial artist. They use a cookie as bait and they end up riding him for a bit, but because they bond, they're like, nah, we need to set him free. And it's a real Harry and the Hendersons moment. It's like, get out of here. We don't want you anymore.
And he's like, no, I love you,
I like
Ron.
You guys. Yeah, just Ron, actually.
Basically, just Ron.
The first person to ever love Ron. Well,
An ant.
Yeah.
Auntie.
He's
not anti-Ron.
He's pro-Ron.
He's pro-Ron.
That's amazing. But it really raises some ethical issues for them going forward. If they're bonding with ants now, man, that's a tough thing. Looking out for stepping on ants and things. I
was going to say, when they go back to real sizes, like, and then be like, oops, I stepped on my childhood friend.
I stepped on Auntie. Yikes. Maybe they can make him big, though.
They could, like in Ant-Man.
No, they can't. I just remembered. They definitely won't be doing that.
Why?
Oh, Auntie dies.
Oh, yeah, of course.
He's anti-life.
Damn, I forgot about old Auntie.
Yeah,
oh, well, clearly a
bummer.
memorable character.
Clearly. But the cops end up turning up because finally they've called worried that their kids are missing.
But then they don't really need the cops because Wayne finally tells Diane, honey, I shrunk the children. Oh,
Did you not
kids,
say
damn
kids?
it. Sorry, my bad. Imagine that. Funny about the title, though, random trivia for this film. This movie was awarded by the Society for the Preservation of English Language and Literature, also known as SPELL. They awarded Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with its 1989 Dunce Cap Award, citing the title's grammatical error of using the word shrunk instead of shrank. Disney said it was on purpose because it was in the dialogue.
Okay, there you go. So
like the English people are like, oh, curse you, Disney! You get this Dunce Cap Award in 1989.
Yikes.
So there you go.
That's pretty funny. As a result, anytime I shrink something from now on, I've been phrasing it that way myself.
So we're all dunces here.
Yeah.
We're the Dunce Cap of 2024.
Anyone that's been listening already knows that.
If you've got this far in any of our podcasts, then, well, if you've worked that out yourselves.
But I like that he explains that the machine's working now, and she gets really excited at first. It's
like, yeah.
Your kids are still missing.
It's like, well,
yeah.
There's a reason I mentioned the machine is working.
This part is where I burst out laughing when the cops come to the front door and say, did you report some missing children? And he goes, there must be some mistake. Ours are in the backyard.
Well, he's not wrong.
It's so good, but then it's like a hard cut to them both on the harness, just like floating over the grass.
Hasn't she passed out in the background though? Doesn't she like fall away?
She does pass
But
out.
then miraculously comes back and smash cut to them both in the harness just looking completely ridiculous.
It is very, very funny. Also, Big Russ throws his cigarette straight into the grass.
Sets them on fire.
Well, the grass is overgrown. Like,
imagine that. That's how
it went up. He's so careless. Actually, he's not careless because we know he only smokes when he cares. So this is the first time we get a hint that he might be worried his kids are missing.
Exactly.
Then we get maybe my least favorite part of the whole film.
The scorpion?
The scorpion. Also, how small is that scorpion to be the size of an ant?
True. Convenience. Convenient sizing is like what this film's subtitle should be called.
Not for Auntie, am I right?
Yeah, true that. They have like some nice bonding moments, obviously, between the characters, little Russ and Amy, hook up.
And then
Exactly.
everyone sleeps in the same tubular section of the Lego.
Of the Lego block, yeah.
They're all just piling on top of each other.
Bit weird.
It's weird, yeah. Anyway, so in the morning, after they've rested overnight for their 3.2-mile journey, old Purvis comes back
He is.
to mow the old lawn.
And to kill them all.
Yeah. Well, also, what are you doing, Purvis? You said you'd be back later the day before.
Slack.
So he mows the lawn. And this section looks pretty funny. So there's a few things. They feel the wind of it before they hear the lawnmower.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever mowed your lawn?
Yeah.
It's loud as hell.
Exactly why. You should be able to, particularly because they can hear everything even more clearly.
100%.
So why can't they hear the mower?
What's that wind?
What's that gust of wind?
Bit silly, but it looks ridiculous when they start to get picked up. This is probably some of the shoddiest effects in the film.
When they like go through the tunnel and stuff, and then it's like back up into like rear projection and everything at the back. Looks real sus and sketchy.
It does. It absolutely does.
Like the idea of like, hey, the kids might get chopped up to pieces. Put some added stakes on the
Barbie?
On the Barbie, yep. And in the film too. But then they pretty quickly escape out of it.
Well, because the parents finally hear the lawnmower. Once
Finally.
again, they're not that concerned or aware of what's going on.
What does like Diane's like think it is? It's like, oh,
Well, first she
like
confesses
it's
her
thunder.
love
Well, that too.
out of nowhere because we haven't actually had much development to prove that he's any more reliable.
So better quickly do it now.
Yeah. Dumb. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Is it a chainsaw?
Yeah, it's like, nah, this could be the mower. The mower!
So they want to stop Tommy, but they don't want to step on the grass, so they're just yelling out to him while he's got his headphones
Oi,
on.
mate!
I think that's what they said. Like, oi, mate, cover!
Oi, gobber!
Anyway, so they don't want to step on the grass, but I think at this point I'd probably step
Just
on the
risk
grass.
it, otherwise your kids are going to get chopped up by them.
And they stop him, but it hasn't stopped spinning.
No.
And then they just come out to the side of the lawnmower.
So, like, they could have been safe the entire time.
Yeah, it would have just flung him into the house, and they would have been
So convenient.
sitting in his cereal, ready to go.
Exactly. I do like the drop into the cereal. I think that looks pretty
Cereal
cool.
jacuzzi with a
The old-
big Cheerios donut.
Yeah,
Love
apparently
it.
they're like massive tires or something like that. I was like reading sort of what they actually did. It's basically like this massive container. And they just
That
sort
they
of
actually put milk in.
they put a liquid in, yeah. And then put like these tires that they sort of like colored to look like Cheerios and stuff, which I think look pretty cool.
I mean, we are pretty much up to that section anyway, because they don't see them, even though they're right in front of them. We have a quick, like, Ron freaking out, like Sam Rockwell from Galaxy Quest.
We're gonna die.
He's like, they didn't even see us, and we're right here. But yeah, then Cork gets him inside. The close-up of them holding onto Cork, though, it's like they're sucking face with a mop again. It doesn't look like Cork.
It's basically the same. I was like, let's reuse that.
Yeah, why not? And somehow, I can't really remember, maybe I was losing interest. Somehow he ends up in the cereal. How does he get, does like Cork shake or something? gets him up there?
I think so. That's what happens, and then all the rest of them are fine. But Nick is the one who's in the milk in the bowl.
Yeah, which is probably for the best. How else was he going to get seen?
Probably not. Some say they're still on that table. It's dying.
Some say. No, they got found. You weren't watching.
Yeah, I know. But wouldn't have got found otherwise.
True, but this is why Cork is the hero of the movie, because he's about to eat his own son,
And then he just-
Cork bites him.
Bites Wayne's ankle, and he's like, no! And then he's like, is it right in front of your eyes? And like, oh, there's my son. Here's the rest of them.
He doesn't even seem mortified that he almost ate him. He's like,
Yeah.
hey, buddy,
Hey, what you doing down there?
down there. And we get that classic shot of the magnifying glass over his giant mouth. I love a bit of good magnifying glass comedy.
Can you want to reference any other films that use this?
There's
That
one
aren't-
where...
not Honey I Shrunk the
there's
franchise.
one where it's like a fishbowl magnifying glass and people keep walking behind it like with their crotch and it just makes them look like they have giant genitals. Pretty funny.
What movie is that from?
It's on the screen right now.
So they managed to finally get found, and now they need to work out, well, how are they supposed to make us large again?
Good time for a game of charades.
Exactly, a good time for baseball. They do pretty well considering Nick doesn't really play baseball, as is made the point of, but they decipher the fact that the baseball has caused the machine to work. So they set the machine up again, and they need a test subject, and who's it going to be but Big Russ. He's stepping in and making a really heroic gesture.
Which shows that he cares, but I think I would have tried it on an inanimate object first. They haven't tried it on anything that hasn't exploded.
It's like, maybe let's just try it on like another apple. But no, they don't do that. They just go straight to Russ, and it kills him. No, it shrinks them. It shrinks Russ, and he almost falls to his doom, but he doesn't. He sits back up, and then they blow him up again. So, machine works. It's fantastic. Though, I'm unsure about this bit, because they make a point to notice the fact that his cap doesn't fit him.
Anymore.
So, he is a bit smaller now?
I think so.
Interesting.
Just a joke about it not being 100% perfect.
Yeah. Anyway, the kids are like unshrunk, are blown up back to normal height. It's all happy days, and then we...
And little Russ asks Amy out, even though she presumably still has that boyfriend waiting for her at the mall.
Not anymore. Poor bugger. He's the villain of the next movie.
It. And then all the families just become best friends with giant turkeys.
Yeah. And
gobble indeed.
And Cork's got a giant dog biscuit to enjoy. Amy and little Russ are playing footsie underneath the table. It's good fun. And
trying to look at each other over the top of the giant turkey.
Big turkey, tricky. And then the movie's finished.
And there's nothing else.
There's nothing else.
It certainly doesn't open back up again.
No, yeah, we've got the nice sort of, I don't know the technical term, like the circular closing, I guess, trying to cut to black. Yeah, but it blows back up again, because then Nick has finally worked out. He's been sitting on this, so potentially
For months.
We don't know when
Christmas
this film has
time
taken
now,
place. He's been sitting there in 6 months. French class? What does it mean?
Wait, I get it. French class.
And it's like, oh, geez. Oh,
and that was
buddy.
the moment I decided I wasn't going to watch any of the sequels. What a low moment to end on.
That's when I was like, oh, how good are the goggles of nostalgia, am I right?
Yikes, they're almost as thick-rimmed as their glasses.
Potentially thicker.
Yeah, wow.
Which is saying something. But yeah, so that was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
I can see why your mum wasn't super enthused for this to be the next one on the pod.
This is true. Yeah, quite often I like to sit down and watch some of the film club homeworks as with the fam when I see them.
This was a solo venture?
This is a solo venture.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's fair. But in saying that, like, we don't get too many new IP live action Disney movies these days. There's not many that spring to mind.
Oh, I'm 100% with you.
So, like, films like this, and again, like, even if there's holes in it, I still think that this film is a good time. I think there's some really impressive cinematography and filmmaking at play here. Not a barn burner of a film that I'm like, oh, I'm going to watch a third time now. But I'm glad I went back to it and got to see it as an adult, and I can still see the elements that are like, yeah, I can know why I enjoyed this as a child.
Yeah, this certainly isn't ranked as a bad watch or anything like that.
No, not at
all.
all.
I do want to acknowledge Reese for the suggestion.
100%.
Especially considering Reese did our first suggestion for the year, and it was Alice in Wonderland, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, and I just tore that to
You
shreds.
ragged on that film.
All over it. So this was not an Alice in Wonderland.
No.
But also, Reese, thanks for picking a film that was a tight 90. I love that.
We really enjoy that, and we are very thankful.
So thanks, Reese, and also thank you again to Josh for the intro to the pod today.
Definitely. They've been trying to get actually a legacy sort of sequel happening called Shrunk. Rick Moranis obviously is someone who's basically retired from acting and has been retired for quite some time.
Yep.
They tried to get him back for Ghostbusters, and he said no.
And I said, I think that was a good call.
Probably. But he was really keen on doing this, and it was going to focus on a totally adult Nick, who was not played by the original actor, Robert Oliveri, but it was in fact going to be played by Josh Gad. So
I don't know how I feel about that. And I like Josh Gad, but I don't know for this role.
If it matches up.
He'll be like too quirky and weird, and it's like that's not
quite Nick what Nick was going for.
No.
But yeah, the film kept getting close, shutting down. COVID happened, got shut down again. Kind of just doesn't look like it's going to happen at the moment. And hopefully one day it does, because I think that'd be pretty cool. I think to go back to this universe and see Rick Moranis acting again, I think would be fantastic. So
yeah, nice. I would be keen to see Rick Moranis in anything. If it has to be this franchise, I guess.
If this idea is enough to get him to act again, clearly, then like that's a big deal, and obviously he's got a lot of love for this character.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Alrighty, shall we move on to weekly watches?
Let's do it.
Weekly watches. Weekly watches.
I'm going to kick things off with Longlegs. Now, I'm going to be very selective with my discussion of Longlegs because I know you are interested to see it but have not yet done so.
Not yet.
So, for anyone who hasn't seen any of the advertising for it, Longlegs is a... in fact, we've talked about it on the pod before. It's a horror film that's been out for a couple of weeks now. Michael Monroe in
From It Follows?
Correct, yes. And you've got Nicolas Cage as the big bad of the film. Now, I went and saw this at the movies, had a good time, had a spooky time, but I would say that overall I was a little disappointed with this film, and it's hard for me to explain why without spoilies.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. But what I will say is that I guess I just wanted it to go in a slightly different direction to where it ended up.
Okay.
So I would say the first 2/3 of the film were really strong, and then for me it kind of unraveled in the last third.
Okay.
But one thing in particular that was done really, really well was just that impending sense of dread. Constantly on edge as you watch for all sorts of different reasons. You just go, oh, something's about to happen because of the way they frame something. It's really good, and I like horror that has that sense of dread rather than jump scares.
Same.
And even though there are some of those throughout as well, just that unsettling feeling throughout.
That's a bit more constant.
Exactly right. That's why I enjoyed it so much. So,
cool.
Yeah, even though I wasn't completely satisfied with the ending, I still think it's a decent watch.
Nice. I'll hopefully we'll get to see it in the next couple of weeks before, like a lot of films, quickly walk its long legs out of the cinemas.
Mm-hmm.
The first one that I will talk about is a horror movie. It's by one of the guys that we talked about on the podcast, tied in with Shrunk The Kids, and it's Re-Animator. So
nice.
1985, directed by Stuart Gordon. It's a bit of a sci-fi horror comedy sort of situation, a Lovecraftian tale. It's good fun. This is a film like I knew a fair bit about, sort of going into it, kind of what the general premise was. I think I'd seen the kill count for this on Dead Meat a while ago. It's a bit of an older one. But yeah, stars Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West, who's one of my favourite parts of The Frighteners. Thank you. That's the one. He was really good in that, and he's very good in this.
He is, yeah.
Plays Herbert West, who's a medical student obsessed with reanimating corpses, as the title would indicate. Barbara Crampton's really good in it as well. Like, she's a bit of a stalwart of the horror genre.
Yes.
And yeah, the film's really fun. Like, the jokes are really good. The gore is excellent, like some really fantastic work on practical effects. I liked the tone of this film. There's a couple of horror movies that I've watched over this year. The other one that sort of jumps to mind is American Werewolf in London, that are funnier than probably what I thought they would be, and Re-Animator's pretty damn funny. So no, I really enjoyed this sort of dark horror comedy with some sci-fi elements as well. It was a good time.
Nice. Next up, I mean, it's a team-up movie, so we might as well do a bit of a team-up explanation.
Oh, yeah?
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, yes.
So, again, we will be very selective with our discussion of this.
We need to be.
If you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, fear not. We will not reveal spoilies. However, if you do want to avoid any sort of conversation about it, you are more than welcome to use the time codes below to skip ahead to our next one. But we loved it. We had a good time. So
really
we saw it separately. I was dying for you to see it so that I could then talk to you about all of those spoiler elements. But it's just good fun. I would say it doesn't have a whole lot of substance to it in terms of the plot. It feels pretty much like something they just kind of threw together so that you can have a bit of fun, go on a bit of a road trip with these two characters that you know and love. But just seeing them together and seeing their chemistry bouncing off one another was everything for me. It was really fulfilling. I would have probably liked a little more of that heart. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't have heart. It absolutely does, but it feels like it rushes over some of those elements. But it was still there, and it still hit me in a big way, especially knowing that universe is kind of coming to a close. The chapter on all the Fox movies is done.
Yeah, it's... I was talking about this yesterday, but one of the main reasons why I think I was, this is one of our probably most anticipated films of the year.
100%.
A main reason for that, and why maybe some younger people won't have the same kind of affinity for this film, is because, without obviously getting into spoilers, is the fact that this is very much a love letter to the Fox era of films. Before we got the MCU, these were our superheroes. These are the films that you and I both went to see in the cinemas as kids. We bought the action figures, we had the lunch boxes, we had all the stuff, and it's important to us. So this era of Marvel has been really lovingly honoured in this film. There's lots of different moments in the film that do that, but just the overall tone as well. It's very much something that's celebrated.
Even though they poke fun at it, I think it's done really respectfully. The action sequences are incredible.
Yep.
The cameos, they feel valuable. They don't feel like just cheap throwaway shots.
No, I was reading something about this today, and it's what actually defines a cameo, because you make an argument the fact that they're not cameos, they're unannounced supporting cast. And the people, obviously we're not going to mention, but they're integral to the plot line, and particularly as the movie sort of picks up sort of the halfway point and driving things forward to get from one point to the other. These characters are essential to what happens. They're not popping up for 2 seconds just to go away for a little bit of fan service, which I thought was really good. And it gives validation for these characters that maybe didn't receive that validation elsewhere in other films.
Soundtrack is amazing in this film.
Oh, so good.
Really, really well suited to the fight sequences as well.
Yep.
And also, something we were talking about, the comedy, even though there are some low blows and dirty comedy.
Some more crude stuff.
Yeah, it felt more sophisticated than the last couple of entries. And one thing that I said in particular was it didn't feel like they were just rattling off gags as fast as they could and hoping that something would stick.
Yeah.
Everything that was said felt more planned rather than people just kind of improving. And one thing that I found with the previous entries is that in the ads for the films, a lot of the jokes are different because they'd rattled off so many on set. They could afford to put completely different jokes in the trailers to what they put in the film. And you don't get that as much for this film because I think they were more meticulous about how they planned it.
Despite the fact that they did 14 trailers.
Yeah. I didn't watch all of the trailers, so I went in with a lot of the surprises concealed. Unfortunately, you weren't so lucky.
No, I'm not going to talk about Comic-Con too much because otherwise we might be here for another hour. But yeah, the fact that they reveal some of these additional actors 2 days after the movie came out in a big public setting, I think was a really poor move from Marvel. And clearly, outside of the other announcement from the major one from Comic-Con shows...
We can talk about it if you want to.
I mean, it's pretty public information. It's it's not a secret. The fact that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back, they've moved away from Kang and they've now gone towards Doctor Doom, and Doctor Doom is being played by Robert Downey Jr., and I've got a lot of problems with it. But
I have mixed feelings about it.
This is a move that reeks of desperation, and it's a gigantic Hail Mary to one of the more bankable faces that the MCU has ever had. And the MCU sales have gone down considerably since he left the universe. So I get their logic behind it. And as much as I agree with you as it's a desperate move to try and bring back some of those sales, I will also admit that when I saw the announcement, I went, I have missed him. And so, whether it's a desperate move or not, there is an element of nostalgia now kicking in where you go, he's just really good, so maybe it will be amazing. Maybe. And we've kind of gone back and forth in conversations as well, because we don't 100% know what the plan is. No, because they keep sort of saying different things, he'll be playing Doctor Doom. No, but he'll be playing Victor Von Doom. And there's a clear difference. If he is a Tony Stark variant of Doctor Doom, then I'm kind of interested. But probably the thing I'm most interested about, and if they do this, I think it will be a masterstroke. And it'll make a lot of Marvel fans probably really mad if he gets killed off really quickly.
Really quickly, yeah, it's possible.
And then it's this is not Doctor Doom. This is Doctor Doom.
Yeah,
particularly with some of the actors who have got rumoured, one of those being Cillian Murphy, which I would find quite funny considering obviously they're both the Oscar winners from Oppenheimer. And someone who I'd probably rather see in the role, just who's not attached to it. Regardless, interest has now been dramatically peaked for the next Avengers film. I mean, I was already pretty keen to see sort of what they would do and pivoting away from Jonathan Majors, but now I'm like, well, I'm intrigued to see what happens. I'll move away from spooky and I'll go for something else. Started to watch a lot more thrillers lately, particularly done by this filmmaker as something I'm like, oh yeah, I really like his work. And I'm talking about Brian De Palma and I'm talking about Blowout.
What a good film.
So 81, this film came out, stars John Travolta as Jack Terry, who's a sound engineer who is trying to get the perfect scream for this slasher film, which, by the way, is like the sort of cold open of this film. I'm like, I'd really like a Brian De Palma slasher film now. It looks really good.
Bear with, I'm going to bring up, because I was telling Mr. Boylan that Wits and I went out
What'd you call it?
De Palma-rama.
Love that.
Last year and watched a bunch. So let me have a look what's on the list, because I'll make some recommendations for you.
Oh, please do.
But continue.
So Jack Terry, played by John Travolta, he goes out and he's trying to record all the sounds to use in the film, and he stumbles across basically a car, going off a bridge and crashing into the water. He saves the woman. The man is dead, but it basically looks like, instead of an accident, it's a murder. And eventually this sort of conspiracy unfolds, and I really love how this film looks, the way it's shot. It's kind of like got some Hitchcocky sort of vibes, but 100%. It's more pulpy, excessive. It's really like voyeuristic, and I love sort of how like picture and sound work together in this film, and obviously with the main character's job and how important that is, like narratively, but also with how things look stylistically with like a lot of split screens and all that sort of thing. I just think I really love the feel of this film.
Yeah, very nice. Suggestions. Carrie's good. I do like Carrie. First Mission Impossible is my favorite Mission Impossible and one of my favorite films. The Untouchables is great.
I love that film, yeah.
Dress to Kill is one.
Yeah, that's one I'm actually like probably pretty close up to next on my watch list.
Yeah, nice. That and Body Double. Those should be high on the list. But yeah, I haven't seen too many more than that, so maybe I need to delve back into De Palma. I've seen Snake Eyes with
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage, but I wouldn't say that's
essential.
An incredible film.
Okay.
But it's got Nick Cage, so why not?
That's fair.
Next for me, I'm just going to talk the whole Alien franchise.
Cool.
With Romulus coming out, I've gone back and I've done a rewatch, and I had only ever seen the first two, so Alien and then Aliens. I love Alien, the first one. We've had this conversation. I just think that it's better being a horror film than it is an action film. As much as I think James Cameron does a really good job with the sequel, and I still really enjoy the sequel, I just think Ridley Scott's style for this particular film is the superior one. Mm-hmm. I love the tension in the first film, and the first film it's a slow burn. We discussed this the other day. It doesn't feel super fast paced. It doesn't feel like it's action and attacks the whole time. Even the attacks themselves, a lot of them happen off screen. It's more about just building up to that. And I think it's also a character study as well. And the first film and the second film have great characters, very different characters, but really, really good characters. And then it takes a very sharp dip after that, unfortunately. Sigourney Weaver is still kicking ass in 3 and 4, but the films themselves, everyone else as characters kind of all blends together. The plots feel like rehashes of what we've seen previously and just not done as well. The tension is virtually non-existent. And I also don't like that because all of these films build on what has come before, the third film very much seems to disregard a lot of what has been set up in the second film. And that film has quite a satisfying ending, and so to start the next film and just be like, nah, forget all about that stuff. I hate that. Yeah, it really devalues it. I described it on Letterboxd as the equivalent to Luke Skywalker throwing away the lightsaber at the start of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And so after the fourth one, I was feeling pretty flat, and then I watched Prometheus.
Remember Prometheus pick me up?
It was great. Really loved it. And again, I made comment on the fact that because Ridley Scott is at the helm, he knows how to handle these films. He knows how to treat this world with respect. And there's a few flaws and dodgy things within Prometheus, but overall, it was a real return to form. Obviously, because quite a bit of time had passed, the effects also looked great. I mentioned earlier about rear projection. There's some very janky rear projection in 3 and 4 in particular. In fact, even at the end of 2, there's some rear projection that's questionable, but I can overlook that because the story's great. Prometheus was great, and it's got me excited, even though I've read that the next entry, which is Alien Covenant, I've heard it's not very good, but it's also Ridley Scott, and it's birthed new life into me. So, much like a facehugger would. I'm ready for Romulus.
Me too.
Well, almost. I want to watch Covenant, and then I'm ready for Romulus. But
keen to hear what you think about Covenant.
I'm excited now. I'm really, really excited, and I'm glad I went back. I will not be watching the Alien versus Predator films. Not now, anyway. Maybe I'll go back and watch them a bit later.
First one's good fun.
Okay.
Second one's terrible.
I also am now really, really pleased that I know what the Prometheus School for Running Away from Things is. So good. So good.
It's quite distinct. It's a distinct class.
It's very good, though.
Nice. I'm also keen for Romulus. Can't wait for that. I might have to go back and watch a couple of them before I get into my last film, because that's a big one. But this one, not a huge film, but an important one for me to finally get around to watching, and that's The Hills Have Eyes, the OG. So it came out in 1977. It was Wes Craven's second film after Last House on the Left. I really like this film. Takes place out in the desert with the family sort of going on a little bit of a trip, and then they come across a cannibal family. So no, this isn't Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's definitely some stylistic similarities. It feels dirty and grimy in the same way that Texas Chainsaw does. It's very unflinching as a film. It's cruel. I really like some of the kills in it. It's really good to see the filmmaker at their earliest put in a lot of elements that are going to be in other films, maybe with bigger budgets. And you can kind of see sort of like Wes Craven's styles that are taking place here, which is cool. Yeah, but
I think the low budget look actually adds to the horror of this film.
I agree.
And
it's more schlocky and just harder to watch sometimes, like, ugh.
Yeah, and the characters are just freaky. Pluto. Well, he's not even the freakiest one.
No. Who's the dad?
No, is it another planet?
I think so, yeah. Aquarius, Jupiter, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I remember that the dad's pretty freaky. Hard to watch is a strong one, because I've seen some horror films that are harder to watch than this, but it feels really... It is
a hard watch. I would support you in saying that.
Okay.
Because I only watched it a few years back now.
Yep.
It's uncomfortable and unsettling.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. It's very, it's quite gripping and it's tense. As like sort of the cat and mouse between both families sort of like takes place, and glad I finally ticked it off. Can't say I'm going to go watch a remake, but that's fine.
That's probably a good call.
I think so. The last one I've got on my watches is a film that is probably going to sit with me for a fair while because of how much I enjoyed it, and it's To Live and Die in L.A. So this is an 1985 film by William Friedkin, obviously known for The Exorcist, and also The French Connection. Yeah, this is like one of the best films I've seen in a really long time. Obviously, it's not a new film. I went and saw it with my old man. Bit of a neo-noir crime thriller, right up your alley. And it's really good. Will Peterson, who's in Manhunter, which is the Hannibal Lecter film before Silence of the Lambs. He stars as this Secret Service agent whose partner is basically killed while on a case by the villain of the film, who is a counterfeiter, played by Willem Dafoe, who's like just having the greatest time in this role. So good. And then basically Chance has got to try to stop this counterfeiter and bring him to justice. Absolutely 10 out of 10 car chases in this film. One in particular, really good visceral shootouts. LA itself looks grimy and excessive and like really perfect for this decade of film. There's a really good score by this UK band called Wang Chung, who do like a really good sort of like synthy kind of new agey sort of pop soundtrack, which is cool.
I know Wang Chung.
Yeah?
They sing Fun Tonight.
Yeah, so they do.
Everybody Wang Chung tonight.
Oh, God. Holy moly. So just like that, this film is brutal but slick.
I would say the reason that was so brutal was its lack of being slick.
Of lack of being slick. That's what they say about you, Mr. Brown, a lack of being slick. One of your defining traits.
You say he's got too much traction.
It's just like, oh, we're getting real stuck in the road there. But no, I like... I didn't know much about the movie. I know it was really good. I know it had a good star rating on Letterboxd. Dad and I both walked out of it and were like, yeah, that was really awesome. So,
Nice.
film I'm trying to track down on hard copy media so I can get it and share it to you and see what you think.
Please. Yeah, that'd be great. Shall we move on to Tantalising Trailers?
Let's.
Tantalizing films. Trailers. Don't know if we will be a fan. How will it be? We'll know in time.
We've got quick, brief trailers today.
I got two.
I had 4, and I've decided I'm only going to talk about 2.
Okay.
Because I just didn't really care about the others. But first up, I'm going to talk Day of the Jackal. So, new Eddie Redmayne film, I think. Maybe it's a TV series.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. I just saw the little bit. I didn't watch the whole trailer. I saw it come up on YouTube. Yeah.
So, the thing that drew me to it, I'm not a huge Eddie Redmayne fan. Fantastic Beasts hasn't helped. Yeah.
And where to not find them, am I right?
Well, that's what I was trying to kind of word out, but I was like, I can't find it.
I'll help you. That's all right.
I couldn't find it.
I got you, fam.
Thanks, mate. But the reason I watched this is because The Day of the Jackal is actually something that I'm pretty familiar with. So it was a 1973 film, and then it got remade in the late 90s, just called The Jackal. And it was a Bruce Willis, Richard Gere, Sidney Poitier film. Cool. So great cast. Oh, it even had Jack Black in it. A young
Jack
Black.
With Richard Gere.
Sidney
Poitier.
Yeah. Anyway, so it is essentially about this assassin, and Bruce Willis is this very famous assassin, but nobody knows what he looks like. He's a jackal. Why are you laughing?
Just trying to imagine Jack Black is like, that could be him. That's the jackal. I found the jackal.
Anyway, he's a master of disguise, so nobody knows what he looks like, but they know that he's been hired to pull off this job. And because nobody knows what he looks like, they end up having to track down Richard Gere, who is in prison and has had some encounter with him at some stage in their life. Yeah. And so they get him out of prison to work for them temporarily because he might be able to identify him.
Yeah.
And it's really good. Like, Bruce Willis's performance in it in particular is incredible. And it's cool to see him in this really cold role after he's usually like the heroic type.
True, yeah.
And it's got like this spy espionage kind of quality to it, which I think you would be really drawn to.
Yep.
Tension is awesome. The music is awesome. And it just feels dark.
It's on the Letterboxd as we speak.
Nice. The 97 version?
Yes.
Good. And Richard Gere has an Irish accent throughout it.
Oh,
so if
even
that doesn't
better.
draw you in, I don't know what will. Just one of my favorite films. So seeing that they are doing a remake, I'm curious. Okay. But cautiously curious.
Fair enough. Always a tricky sort of line to tread with remakes and reimaginings. If it's going to discolor the memories of what you've already done, I don't know.
I also just don't know if I can see Eddie Redmayne as like the assassin type.
That's fair.
Eddie Deadmayne.
Indeed.
You could say the wheels were turning. Yeah,
you got something. You got something.
Trying to get there.
Nice one, Mr. Brown. I've got a series and a movie to talk about. I'll kick off with the series, and that's The Penguin. So this is bridging the gap in the Matt Reeves Batverse. And
you need a bridge with all that water that's coming into Gotham.
Am I all right? I'm really excited for like the second Matt Reeves Batman. I really enjoyed the first one. So I'm keen to spend a bit more time in this Gotham, set immediately after the first Batman movie. And as you mentioned, that Gotham is a large chunk of it is underwater.
Something I hadn't thought of, though. I appreciate the fact that a penguin is thriving now that the town is underwater.
Exactly. He's in his element. Obviously, the Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot, is being played by Colin Farrell in some of the best makeup work that you'll ever see, because I remember when the photo came out on set and I was like, and they said, that's Colin Farrell. I was like, no, it's not. But all like makeup aside, I thought he was brilliant in the first Batman movie. I really liked his portrayal I mean, we've got the version from Gotham, but I don't love that series.
DeVito.
I was going to say, then we've got Danny DeVito with a really sort of different kind of betrayal.
Disgusting.
Really grimy and black and slimy and
biting heads off fish
and noses of people and stuff. Yeah,
but legitimately eating raw fish.
It's disgusting.
Oh yeah, it's gross.
Essentially, what this Penguin series is doing is setting up Oswald Cobblepot. Obviously, after Carmine Falcone, he dead. There's a power vacuum for the criminal underworld of Gotham City, and old Ozzy is trying to take it. But he's got a bit of a roadblock because there's another Falcone who wants to come back in and basically continue what her family's been doing, and that is Carmine Falcone's daughter, Sophia, who's played by the lovely Kristen Milioti, who we love in Palm Springs, USS Callister, in Black Mirror. I don't know what else I've seen her in.
She's good in everything. She's in Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, she is. Yeah, it's true. She's really good in everything. So I'm pretty intrigued to sort of see what happens with this character. Like, she's been in Arkham and is now out. And it's like, yeah, I'm all good. I was like, well, clearly not all good. She might be going around killing people. So interested to sort of see what happens with this. I feel like this is a must watch, and like production value looks really awesome for a TV series. It looks like they've spared no expense. So yeah, I'm pretty keen to see what they do.
I would be stoked if the opening scene was them blowing up Barry Keoghan's cell that has his version of the Joker in
and then he's just dead.
He's just dead.
That'd be pretty good.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, but it's like Barry.
No offense, Barry. I just don't want to see that version of the Joker.
I just don't want to see any version of the Joker for a really long time.
I'm fine with seeing a version of the Joker down the line. I want some other villains.
Got so many. Use them. You can do Hush. You can do the Court of Owls. You can do a proper Mr. Freeze, Mad Hatter, Professor Pig, Ventriloquist, and Scarface. I can just keep rattling off Batman villains.
That's all right. Let's move on.
I'll keep going.
In my final tantalising trailer, I've got Dexter Original Sin. So I only found out this morning, Mr. Boylan, that you haven't watched any of Dexter.
No.
I highly recommend. We also found out that Miss RB watched the first season of Dexter, the whole season, before she realised that Dexter was a serial killer.
Spoilers! Spoilies! What's a massive spoilies?
For the opening monologue of episode 1.
Of a 2004 TV show?
Crazy. But we had a good chuckle about that. But I highly recommend it, mate. It's really good. Michael C. Hall is incredible in the role. I would say that with the exception of the final season, which is a bit of a bummer, the show is consistently good. Like, nice. It has better seasons and worse seasons, but they're all pretty gripping. Each season has its own individual storyline as well. Cool. Plus, each episode has its own storyline. So it's kind of got that through line, but you get a satisfying conclusion and then start over with the next season as well. So, yeah, really, really good. The ensemble characters are incredible, really engaging. The setting is awesome. They came out with a season, I'm trying to remember what it was called, maybe like Last Blood or something, recently, maybe like 5-10 years later. Okay. Kind of where is he at? And this one is a prequel. So it's called Original Sin. It is a younger person that is playing him, but Michael C. Hall is coming back to do his internal monologue.
Cool.
Which I think is a brilliant idea, a way for him to still feel attached to the project, a way to get fans of Dexter to come back and be like, yeah, it still feels like it's in that world. Sarah Michelle Gellar is in it. I know a lot of the characters that are in the other show are being recast with younger people, so it will feel very much in the vein of the original show. And yeah, it just looks really good. But I also, while I was looking up the trailer for it, because the trailer's kind of just a bit of a teaser that shows this younger character doing his morning routine, which is what the opening credits for every Dexter episode was.
Cool, yep.
As I was looking into it, I saw that Michael C. Hall has been attached to 2 new Dexter projects. So, Dexter Original Sin, and then I saw very briefly a mention of something called Dexter Resurrection. And since we're just talking about Alien, I was like, oh, there you go.
He's facing Xenomorphs.
Yeah, apparently a clone of him is coming back. Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, and it's cool that people are still interested and keen to see more of this character, because I kind of am. It is tricky because you do, when a show is supposed to end, you do have conclusions to that.
Yeah, a bit of finality, yeah.
But since I wasn't entirely happy with the conclusion, I'm happy to kind of string things along a little bit and maybe find a more satisfying conclusion to things.
Another chance to stick the landing.
Yeah, exactly right. But yeah, Dexter Original Sin for Dexter fans. you can look at the teaser trailer for that. And Mr. Boylan, go watch it because it's good.
I might have to. I need some new shows. One of the ones I'm actually keen to start watching soon might be the X-Files as well. So X-Files and but Dexter's one I've sort of thought about touching on for a while, so might be the time. My last trailer to talk about, the new Transformers 1 movie. This is essentially a prequel movie, an animated film.
Which doesn't really make sense because Transformers 1 already exists. If it wants to be a prequel, it should be Transformers 0.
Am I right? Yeah. They could. We've got Chris Hemsworth, who's voicing Optimus.
Oh, nice.
Brian Tyree Henry, who's voicing Megatron. And basically the whole premise of this film is setting up the fact that Optimus and Megatron are mates. And they're on Cybertron. Basically, everything's going okay. But then things start to fracture. The plot gets going, and then we start to move towards the creation of the Decepticons and Megatron becoming evil. So I think, stylistically, it looks great. I've always liked the opening segments on Cybertron. Usually is the cold open sometimes of the different Transformers movies. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty keen to see a whole movie on Cybertron. The animation style looks really great. Really good supporting cast as well. Alita, one of the robots, is played by Scarlett Johansson. You've got Lawrence Fishburne, John Hamm, and then who's voicing Bumblebee is Keegan-Michael Key. That'll be nice, light and fun.
Okay, Transformers 1, I see you.
Yeah, so
I hear you at least.
Exactly. Ready to roll out, and pretty keen to go see this. I wouldn't say I'm a diehard Transformers fan. I haven't gone back and watched the original series, but Michael Bay film's a bit of a guilty pleasure. A little bit of fun. I like the games and stuff, and I like this whole universe that sort of existed across a lot of different platforms over a long time. So Transformers 1, pretty keen for this.
Nice. As always, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, share it around. You know how much we appreciate that. But we're looking for some new suggestions. We've got a couple lined up for future weeks. We're looking to add to our overall list because sometimes our weeks are a little bit lighter on in terms of attendance if we've got events and things like that. So it's nice to have a few logged away just in case.
Bank a couple.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. So please comment below if you've got any suggestions for future weeks. But they do have to be P and G.
Or G.
Or G, yeah.
They can be G.
G.
Gee whiz.
Oh,
Oi, whoa.
Anyway.
Whoa. Hey.
And
Anyway.
we're back. Oh, wait. I get it. French class. Thanks, everyone, and catch you at the next film club.
Jesus.